So you like a little bit of a competition. Hello fellow book nerds, this is Gabby and today I have another video in my So You Like series, which is a series. This is like the third video in this series, but basically I take a trope, I take a common writing device or I don't know, something to do with books, and I say, oh, so you like books like that? Let me recommend you some books. I've done one on flowery writing and the other one, I don't remember what it was about, but I will link both of them up there. But today, to celebrate the release of A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the prequel to Hunger Games, I felt inspired to chat to you about books with competition in them. I feel like I've read so many, and having made this list and then looked at my shelves, I was like, I have so many of these actually physically, and that doesn't happen that often, because this is all the book, well, almost all the books I own. So I was like, oh my god, I guess competition is something I really like. And I do think books with competition do have something really cool about them, especially in sci-fi and fantasy, where the stakes are high, where there's a ticking clock, where there's a countdown of how many competitors are left, and our protagonist has to stand up by their wits, by their physical strength, by their unique ability, and really shine and overcome any kind of obstacle that's thrown their way. Usually, you know, there's like twists and turns with unforeseen obstacles, with people cheating, with hurdles thrown away of the protagonist that you think, however the hell are they gonna get there? Sometimes you think they got their goal and bam, turns out they didn't. I just think competitions really facilitate that feeling of unease, of racing heart, of ticking down clock, and it just, the stakes are always high. Sometimes because they're fighting to the death, sometimes it's not that deep, but it's still pretty deep. So let's chat about books with competitions in them. There's obviously books outside of sci-fi and fantasy that have competition elements, but today I just want to talk about sci-fi and fantasy, as that's the kick I'm on right now. So let's kick it off. I've got 10 books for you. And first, it's more of an honorable mention because I'm not gonna pretend like I've come up with this recommendation, but obviously I just gotta mention the Hunger Games. I mean, games are in the title, and I think this kind of kicked off my love for, I don't want to say competitions in books, but it's probably one of the earliest I've ever read, and I recently reread the whole series alongside the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes to celebrate the movie and kind of get ready for it. My review is up if you want to check that out. I love these. I just think they're so well written. If you do not know what Hunger Games is about, it's inspired by Battle Royale, which is, I believe, a Japanese book where children have to kill each other to the death. And this also takes place in Panem, which is post-apocalyptic North America. We follow Katniss, who lives in District 12, the poorest district. There's 12 districts, and to remind the districts that they should not rebel because the Rasta Rebellion cost them so much, every year there's Hunger Games, which is a competition where two tributes from each district go into an arena and fight to the death. Amazing, amazing, amazing series. I think depressingly timeless, I would call it. Depressingly timeless, I think, is how I would describe Hunger Games. But again, I feel like everyone knows this. I'm not going to be sitting here for 5 minutes talking to you about why you should read Hunger Games. But if you haven't done so, I would actually recommend it. I've read this series 3 times now, and each time was better than the last. So there you go. That's probably a lie. I probably liked it the first time the most just because you don't know what's going to happen and you're like, but this time was also really, really good. Okay, as a recommendation number 2, I would say for fans of Hunger Games, because it's another deadly competition one. So this one is wrong book on the top. All of Our Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. So this is a duology. Book 2 is All of Our Demise. And this is by the author, well, Amanda Foody is the author of Ace of Shades, which is one of my all-time favorite books. But in this one, it's co-authored, and we follow okay, let me get this right. So we follow this town where there are people that live there who have access to magic, but all like high magic. So like actually impressive, like feats of magic have been almost eradicated. People have access to like some small kinds of magic, but like, you know, trinkets and good luck potions and stuff like that, but nothing serious, except for these 7 families. Every like 10 years or so, these 7 families each nominate a tribute, or like, yeah, a tribute, I guess, their victor. They nominate a child, because you have to be like young, to enter this competition where they're gonna fight to the death, and the person who wins, their family gets access to the last high magic that's left in the world. There's an enemies to lovers, there's different kinds of magic. They store the magic in the rings, which is pretty cool. There's this dome that falls so that no one can assist them, and it's about, you know, like getting by on your wits and stuff like that. And we follow, I think, 4 or 5 of the tributes. I like this. I will say not as much as Hunger Games or Ace of Shades, but I still think this was pretty good. The sequel definitely like muddles the waters a little bit, and I just think it was an interesting take on this. If you enjoy the competition element, I think it has that really well in terms of like making allyships. Can you even believe your allies? And it's like fighting to the death, so it has that element from Hunger Games that will keep you like guessing, like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen, can we even trust anyone if it's a competition to the death, you know. It's got all those good elements, so I would recommend, and I thought it was a pretty fun duology, and I love Amanda Foody, so there you go. Third book I would like to recommend is Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake. So this book went through like a storm. It used to be self-published, but I think now it's been picked up by a traditional publisher. So in Atlas 6 we have this thing called the Alexandrian Society, who stores all the knowledge from the world and access to magic, and is a very, very powerful organization. So whenever you join the Atlas Society, you know, you have the wealth, you have power, you have access to magic. So it's high stakes. And every 10 years, 6 magicians get chosen to join the society, but it has to be the most powerful magicians in the world, and not all of them can make it. I feel like there's things like unraveled through the books. I don't want to spoil too much, but basically they have to fight for their places there. It's not as easy as being chosen. This one's adult, whereas Hunger Games and All of Us Villains are both YA, but this one's adult. I think it had interesting character dynamics, quite an interesting world setup. There's also a sequel called Atlas Paradox, but I have not read that one, so I can't like 100% recommend it, but I just think it had very, very interesting set of powers on the people, and the way the competition worked was maybe not as straightforward, but still really interesting, which maybe added its own cool element. So yeah, Atlas 6, it was really fun for me. I thought it was such a good book, and like Olivie Blake seems to have had loads of success, so like more power to her, because she did a really great job writing this one. I don't know what the differences are with the traditionally published version, because I haven't read that one, but I've read the self-published version. I really, really enjoyed it, and it definitely like left me wanting more, which probably means I should pick it up again, or pick it up the sequel at least. Okay, the 4th book I would like to recommend is Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. So this book is actually inspired by Mexican mythology, and we follow a world filled with dios, gods, and semidios, like demigods, and every 10 years, which I am aware I've said 3 times now, but I don't know, 10 years is just a powerful number apparently, but every 10 years, the power of Sol, so god of sun, has to be replenished, and the way to do that is for Sol to choose 10 competitors to participate in this kind of race. So there's challenges along the competition, but it all culminates in this like race. So the winner of the competition actually carries the sun, the power of the god, and their life powers the power. So you're basically competing for the honor to die, but let's forget that. And the competition is an opportunity for everyone to showcase their strength, their cunning, their raw abilities, and stand out the most. So I guess Sol chooses them to be sacrificed. And we follow Tio, who's a 17-year-old son of Quetzal, who's the goddess of birds. So he's a demigod. So there's also different characterizations for the demigods. So there's golds, I believe, who are like the most highly esteemed. There's jades, who are not considered as powerful, and there's obsidians who are evil. So he's a jade, so he never thought he would be chosen, but he is, and he has to compete. I thought this was such like an electrifying book. I loved it. So Tio is transgender, and so is the author, which I love that representation. I loved how it spoke about being transgender and like the, I guess, metaphors and how that all of that was conveyed. I really enjoyed that. But also just like the element of the competition, I found the world to be so, in my head, incredibly colorful and lively and vivid, and the author just did such a good job of like making you feel like you're in this jungle with all of these amazing gods and creatures, and you love Theo so much because he just seems like the sweetest boy. And yeah, I just had such a good time with it. I think there's sequels coming out sometime soon, so I'm really excited for that one actually. But yeah, it's just such a wholesome but great story, teaching you a lot. And I think it was super cool to learn about Mexican gods and stuff like that. So like 100% would recommend. Next book I would like to recommend is The Final Strife by Saara El-Arifi. And I actually met the author yesterday at Yalk, and I got a signature. And the author was just absolutely the sweetest. But I love this book. I don't even know if I've spoken properly about this book, because it might have been in that period when I didn't like do wrap-ups, but I loved it, 5 stars. But what this book is about is every 10 years there's this competition called the Aktibar, which is used to find the future rulers of this kingdom. So you essentially compete in different competitions. So some are for the Warden of War, I think it's Warden of Strength, sorry. There's like scribes. So there's different leadership positions which the competitors here are fighting for the right to be an apprentice to, basically. So once you win this competition, you are like being groomed and trained to become the warden of whatever. So in this book, we follow 2 main characters. It's a female-female romance, which was done so well. So we follow 2 characters. One of them is the daughter of the Warden of Strength, but her mother doesn't really consider her worthy. She's always been super derisive and has no faith in her, essentially. And then we follow a girl who came from these rebels. I don't want to get into it too hard, but we have 2 characters. So the girl who came from the rebels, she's been brought up her whole life to participate in the Aktibar in order to infiltrate the highest ranks and become the Warden of Strength, and then turn the tide towards the rebels. Whereas the other character is the daughter of the Warden of Strength, who is more like the soft type, not the warrior type. Shenanigans happen, and the shenanigans mean that the daughter of the warden participates in the Aktibar for strength, and the rebel is coaching her on how to do that. There's really cool magic system. The competition is very deadly, but there's a really interesting set of different like mini games and competitions within the whole competition that just really require main characters to exercise that brain muscle and really think outside of the box, be cunning. There's so much strength in the main character. I think that's something I really enjoy with competition books, where they're just so damn determined, and sheer force of will, it just propels them further and further, and they really have to like challenge themselves in the competition to just soar to whole new heights. I loved it. I love the book. I would 100% recommend this. I think it's probably one of the best books that I read this year. The sequel is already out, and book 3 is coming out next year. So I'm super excited. But yeah, really good. Next book is Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. So Chloe Gong is the author of These Violent Delights, which is a Romeo and Juliet retelling fantasy series set in 1920s Shanghai. But this is her newest first adult series, which is inspired by Mark Antony and Cleopatra. So it's set in this futuristic world where people have the ability to jump bodies. So they can literally like come out of their body, and their soul essence, whatever you want to call it, jumps into another body and takes it over. It's quite a deadly ability, as it's easy to lose control, and you know, people can hijack your body. It's all very messy. But the element of competition is that every year there's this contest where people who can jump bodies can participate, and they essentially, I think, have to like fight to the death, and the last person standing gets like unimaginable riches. So everyone who thinks their situation could be better wants to participate. But it's not just like one single gladiator style fight. They have like weeks coming up to the fight and the competition, and it's again about outsmarting your opponent and becoming better and all that. But the two people who we follow who are part of this competition is Kala, who's Cleopatra, who's the ex-princess or the previous princess, exiled princess of this world, where she was exiled because she killed her whole family. And then we have Mark Antony, or his name is actually like something else, Anton, that's it. Anton, who's the Mark Antony character. He's also an exiled person from the palace for some crimes he's committed. And he has been stripped of his body. So he now has to always jump between bodies in order to survive because his body is out of reach. So both of them are participating in this deadly game. I love this. I thought it was so well executed, really stunning, and the romance was super toxic, and we are here for it. Maybe not toxic, but troubled for sure. Toxic, I don't remember. Troubled, yes. Next up, we have A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Eileen and its sequel, Venom, Dark and Sweet. Magic Steeped in Poison, we follow Ning, I'm not sure, Ning, who, when she was little, killed her mother, which is a pretty grim thing to do, I agree, but it was an accident. So she brewed a tea that ended up poisoning her mother and poisoning her sister. Her mother died, but her sister just became chronically ill. And in this world, there's this magic system based on tea brewing. When there's a competition to find the royal tea brewing magician, our main character decides to take part, hoping that by winning she will be able to save her sister and access some unknown kinds of magic from the palace to make her better and help her sister. I love this book. First of all, magic tea brewing as a magic system, that's so cool. I love that. I really love the main character. Again, the world was super vivid and just so lived in. I like the sequel as well. I think overall it was just really fun. Such a surprise. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. But it just really took you for a ride, and I loved the romance in it. I loved the main character's strength and growth through the series. And again, I think the magic system was so cool. And something I really loved about this competition was that it was set at the royal palace, and there's these like it's really reminiscent to me of like scholar exams that I know like used to be a thing in like South Korea, where scholars would have to participate, you know, in like different types of exams to pass and become a proper scholar. And it kind of feels like that. It's very like prim and proper, but there's like a lot of challenges, a lot of ways to stand out, and there's always the drama. And you would think, you know, tea brewing, how dramatic can it get? But it gets really dramatic. And I just think, yeah, this is super good. There's like political plots. It's all very, very fun. And next up is a book that I did not think was like perfect by any means, but the competition element in it was my favorite. So I think like there's something to be discovered in here. And the book is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. So Spin the Dawn is like Mulan meets Project Runway. And I know that sounds weird, but basically we follow a girl who enters a royal contest as well, to find the best, like a dressmaker or like a tailor, the best tailor in the whole kingdom. So it's kind of similar to a Magic Steeped in Poison in the sense that it's also set in like a fantasy version of China, ancient China, and there's, you know, the competition element is quite like royal and proper and a scholarly exam kind of vibe. But the Mulan part comes because the main character has to pretend to be her brother in order to enter the competition, because women are not allowed. So the first half of the book, which was very focused on the competition element, I thought was amazing. The competition and the way the fabrics were described and the tailoring and and that fashion element, I felt like it just came alive in my mind. I loved that bit. Like, specifically, it just felt like watching, like, I don't really watch fashion shows too much, but I did when I was a bit younger. But I love baking shows, and it reminded me of a baking show in a sense that, you know, like, you understand that these people love what they're doing, know what they're doing, care about what they're doing, and just convey the importance. You know how I watch these baking shows, and you would think I'm a damn expert in types of icing, how to make icing, what mistakes they make. Like, I am, you know, like, and that's what it felt like reading this book, because it felt like we learn about the fabrics, we learn about the cats, the tailoring, what works, what doesn't. Like, I love that bit of it. I feel like second half of the book really forgot that this was a competition book and just became like a little travel book. And I'm like, I don't understand that. So I didn't like that bit. And overall, I ended up rating the book pretty low. But because the competition element was so strong, I would say there's still every hope for you to like it, and a lot of people did. And I absolutely love the author's other series, Six Crimson Cranes. So I'm not gonna sit here and claim the author can't write, because she definitely can. And the last two books that I have are more focused on like a one-to-one competition rather than like a big group or 10 people, whatever, like fighting to the death. Like, it's more like rival, like very focused on the two rivals. So first one is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. So I find this book, the series, just infinitely compelling, and as an idea just so interesting. I've not read the last book, don't judge me. I wanted to, and then I heard bad things and I was scared, because I love book 1 so much. Book 2 is so good, so I was scared. But whatever, Scythe. So this is a sci-fi book where we have conquered pretty much all ailments that have ever plagued society, humanity, whatever you want to call it. There is no death. Natural death has been eradicated. But the problem that we faced was overpopulation. So something that was created were these things called scythes. So scythes are people who glean to keep the population at bay. So what we follow is a competition between two scythe apprentices who want to become scythes themselves. And it's like a deadly game between the two of them, because only one of them can become a scythe and the other one will die. So we really follow those two people so intimately. You know the stakes, and you just really come to love both of them. And I think you really come to understand both of them, and they understand and know each other quite well. And it's heartbreaking to see, but the whole concept of the book is just infinitely interesting. The whole concept of gleaning, of size, is about morality, about what's wrong, what's right. I just think, honestly, it's like one of the best sci-fi series, at least book 1 and 2. I don't know about book 3. I've not read it. Maybe one day I will reread Scythe. I really want to, because I am really interested in rereading it, understanding with my 26-year-old brain versus my 19-year-old brain of whenever I read this. And the last book I wanted to recommend was The Crown's Game by Evelyn Sky. I was surprised. Like, I just bought this book on a whim. The physical copy is in Poland, but I bought this book back when I lived in Poland, so like 8 years ago. I bought it on Book Depository, RIP. But yeah, I just bought it on a whim, and I really enjoyed it. So this book is set in Russia. But when? I don't know. This book is set in Russia a long time ago, and there are only 2 enchanters or magicians left in Russia. And Saara decides to make a competition for the 2 of them to fight for the title of the Crown's Enchanter, and the other person will be sentenced to death. So it's about 2 of those magicians, the only ones left in the country, to battle it out in like series of tests of skill and cunning and all of the good things I've already mentioned 50 times this video, to figure out who the surviving enchanter will be. So as you can see, both of the books I mentioned that only had 2 people were both to the death, and I think it's so infinitely compelling, because you know where this is going. They're probably gonna fall in love, and then what? So I just find that compelling as hell. So yeah, I think overall competition books are so fun. There's still so many I haven't read that I really want to pick up. I didn't really think that was something that I loved like so much, but having reflected and how much I love these books, how much excitement there is to be found in competition books, I just gotta say I love them. I think they're so much fun, and I hope you think so too, especially if you watched the whole video. I hope you like competition books. Let me know, what's your favorite game in real life that you like to play and you're like, I'm very good at this, let me kill all of my friends. I think for me, I'm pretty good at Uno. I also played Risk for the first time not too long ago. I was pretty good at that. I do love me some Monopoly, but I'm not sure I'm that good at it, you know. But yeah, let me know what's a competition or game you're very good at, and what's your favorite competition book, or do you have any recs for me? Let me know. I would love to chat. I would love to find new recommendations. I hope this series facilitates us both finding better recommendations. Subscribe if you want to know when the next part of the So You Like comes out. I don't know when that will be, but hopefully sooner than this one. And let me know in the comments, what trope would you like me to recommend to you? What's your favorite like bookish thing that you like that I can recommend to you? But if you enjoyed this video, if you could comment, like, and subscribe, I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. But thank you so much for watching. That's it from me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!